Welcome to Shannons Club TV, where we reflect on classic cars from Australian roads and racetracks.
In each episode, we open the archive on our feature car with rare images, new insights and a beautifully preserved owner's example.
We'll also get some handy market advice from the Shannons auctions team. So let's take a look at the Italian sedan and coupe range that brought racetrack breeding to the road. Alfa Romeo's Alfetta.
In May 1972, in Italy, just 10 months after the debut of the HQ Holden, Alfa Romeo launched the first of its new 116 series range, the Alfetta 1.8 sedan. The all-alloy twin overhead camshaft engine was not new to Alfa Romeo's production cars, and neither was a 5-speed all-synchromesh gearbox. Even four-wheel disc brakes were unremarkable. But this front-engined rear-drive sedan offered perfect 50-50 weight distribution thanks to its adoption of a rear transaxle and a Dion suspension per the 1951 Grand Prix race car for which it was named. By moving the mass of the gearbox and clutch aft, the engineers also liberated more space for passengers and luggage. Additional desirable mechanical developments included the use of rack and pinion steering and mounting of the rear disc brakes inboard in the same mode as the Jaguar XJ6. Mark, the Alfetta's mechanical package made it immediately suitable for racing, didn't it?
Yeah, it sure did, for all those reasons you've outlined. And although the Alfetta GTV coupes came close, they were never able to nail a class win at Bathurst. That had to wait until 1985 when the GTV6 came along, which I'll get to a bit later on.
Even though cars such as the Datsun 1600 and Fiat 125 had prepared Aussies for the world of high-performance four-cylinder sedans, the Alfetta was something else again. Forget the old ton, the magic 100 miles an hour, the Alfetta achieved a metric 180. About 2.5 years later, we got the Alfetta GT, later GTV Coupe. While looking for all the world like a hatchback, which it should have been, this variant actually had a conventional boot, which amounted to a badly squandered opportunity. But at least it had a real rear seat. The gauges were strangely arranged with the tacho in front of the driver and the rest in the centre. A more conventional layout was adopted in 1983. Although the driving position notoriously favoured those long of arm and short of leg, the Alfettas were nevertheless great drivers' cars. The engine grew to 2 litres and there were minor facelifts. Then in 1983 came the GTV6 Coupe with perhaps the world's best ever sounding V6 engine. This one I fell in love with several times over. I think of it as a kind of cut-price Ferrari, although more veloce would have been nice. Mark, with its 2.5 litre V6, the GTV6 proved to be highly competitive in the new Group A category, didn't it?
Yeah, it sure did. Certainly in the 3 litre class. And if it had a little bit more power, it also could have been an outright winner too. Although Alfa Romeo's Alfetta GTV and GTV6 coupes proved to be popular class contenders in local Group C touring car racing, the fine-handling Italian cars were never potential outright winners. However, that all changed in 1985 when Australia followed Europe in switching to international Group A rules, which were well suited to the definitive model in the 116 series range, the GTV6. With its more powerful 2.5 litre V6 engine, the glorious sounding coupe had by 1985 already won 4 manufacturer titles in the European Touring Car Championship. Not surprisingly, the first year of Australian Group A racing also featured sparkling performances by a pair of factory-backed GTV6s, driven by race and rally ace Colin Bond and 1980 World Formula One champion Alan Jones. All of a sudden, Alfa Romeos were nipping at the heels of touring car racing's outright contenders. John, the GTV6, that really was a high point in Alfa Romeo history, wasn't it?
It certainly was. And look, they were great cars to own. Despite all the reputation about unreliability, it just wasn't true. They were really lovely cars to own and drive.
The thing I never understood about Italian cars, you made reference to the short legs and long arms. Where did they come up with that driving position? Because it was such a characteristic, not only in Alfa Romeos, but a lot of Italian cars.
Well, I guess it's generally true that a lot of Italians were shorter of stature, perhaps, but it's just the way they made their cars. It's strange, isn't it? I suppose there's also that ridiculous boy racer tendency to want to sit back like this, which a lot of Australians seem to think that you've got to have the seat, especially in a Subaru, almost on the floor to be able to drive the car properly. But that's all I can come up with. But yeah, pretty much a tray of Italian cars.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because the Italians are mad about motorsport, and they would have seen all their Grand Prix heroes driving around with this straight-arm driving
look,
position.
we say that, it's a cliche, that's exaggerated too. I mean, I never had any trouble finding a good driving position in any of my many Alfetta and Alfetta-based cars, GTV6s.
Yeah.
Lovely cars to drive. The steering, the best steering in the world, absolutely alive in your hands.
And that beautiful 50-50 weight distribution with these cars.
Yes.
Just superb, wasn't it?
Yes, and they spoiled that a little bit by putting the V6 engine in. With the four-cylinder cars, especially the sedan, which actually had the 50-50 weight distribution, the coupe wasn't. The coupe had the shorter, stubbier tail.
Yeah.
So the Alfetta 1.8 sedan was actually the best handling of all of them.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah. Bond and Jones finished 6th and 8th in the 1985 championship, with one outright pole position, several top 4 finishes, and numerous 3-litre class wins, including Bathurst. And if you take into account the 5 cars that finished ahead of Bond, you realise the bright yellow Alphas were kicking well beyond their range. Jim Richards won the series in his BMW 635 CSI, followed by Dick Johnson's Ford Mustang, Peter Brock's Holden Commodore, Neville Crichton's BMW, and Robbie Francevic's turbocharged Volvo, all of which were far more powerful than the Italian cars. By 1986 though, the turbocharger genie was out of its bottle, and naturally aspirated cars, including the GT-V6, were doomed. On reflection, power, or not enough of it, is usually pinpointed when discussing the GT-V6's time in Aussie Group A. Had it been blessed with a larger capacity engine, like Alfa's 3-litre V6, which came along later, it could well have had the 300 plus horses Bond rightly said it needed to be an outright winner in 1985. And local touring car racing history could well have told a very different story. Don't forget, you can find your favourite car club or event on the Shannons Club website.
Hi, my name is Remy Conchi. The model of this car is the Alfetta GTV6 GP, the Grand Prix version, 1986. I'm the third owner. When I first got the car, it was in a reasonable condition. Well, I've done rust, the engine, so at the moment everything's restored. Under the hood, it's the 6-cylinder, and the Grand Prix's got the unleaded petrol and the injection. I've always been passionate about Alphas since I was a teenager. It just looks a bit sexy, in a way, Just the shape, slim design, and the bumpers, and the black spoilers. So I love the just the look. It looks cool. I'm a Shannon customer, and I've insured with Shannon before. I'm very happy with Shannon. This is a great car to drive because you can hear the engine roaring, that sound. It just goes like a violin. And it goes so smooth on the road, it's a dream come true. My future plan is probably, if I can't drive it, I'll leave it to my son. Hopefully that I can drive when I'm a bit older, but in the meantime, I'm driving it.
Well, Tiny Hansen from Shannons Auctions joins us to bring us right up to speed on the 116 Series Alphas. Welcome to the show, mate.
Thank you, Mark.
Hello, Tony. These are
John.
cars right after my own heart. I've had numbers of them. 4-cylinder sedan, 4-cylinder coupe and V6 coupe. I imagine they've all got a following, but does one in particular stand out?
It'd be the GTV6 for sure, undoubtedly. Top of the pecking order.
So why do you say that? Just because it's got the biggest capacity engine, or the fact it's a 6-cylinder? What's the
A little bit of both. I mean, more power, more collectability, and if you get one with the Hero Red with the black trim, manual, ticking all the boxes.
For a long time, they were static. I know because I owned them and I used to watch
the prices.
Only one at a time. The prices were static for a long time, around about $12,000. But the 105 series, the predecessor, those coupes were so highly sought after, it seemed to me only a matter of time before the GTV6 went with them.
Well, that's what we're seeing now. We're seeing prices of all the offers across the line, those eras are going up in prices.
Rust was a major problem for the 4-cylinder sedans and coupes, not by the time they got to the GTV6, but those early cars with the rust, is that a hindrance for them, or are they proving collectible?
Well, if you get one that's already been restored, you'd pretty much guarantee that most of the rust has been cut out if it's been done properly.
So what about spare parts backup and specialised servicing? Is there a good network of that for these
Through
cars?
the clubs, for sure. There are some special mechanics out there that will specialise in the older cars. Pretty easy to find through the clubs.
And parts prices are pretty good still?
Yeah, they're still holding their own.
Okay. So in terms of collectability-wise, we start with the GTV6 and work down?
Work your way down, correct.
Yeah? Okay. All right, thanks, Tony.
No problem.
And remember, you can keep up to date with all the latest Shannons Auctions news on the Shannons Club website. If you'd like your own competition image of Alfa Romeo's Alfetta, visit the huge motorsport archive at autopics.com.au. John, looking back at the Alfetta, you know, the last of the rear-wheel drive Alfas for a long time, it really was a high point in that car, wasn't it?
Yes, I think it's not a coincidence that Alfa's glory, if you like, as a really frontline performance car manufacturer, began to fade then when it turned its back on rear-wheel drive and went to front-wheel drive.
And the styling too, I think, you know, the cars that followed there, the 75 and the 90, I don't think they had the same, you know, visual appeal that certainly the Alfetta Coupe had.
I think the 90 bodied by Bertoni was too conservative and the 75 was probably too out there. The big 164 sedan with its Pininfarina lines was a beautiful car, but it was a different customer, I think, really.
Yeah, and it all changed by then.
So I think it's fair to say, really, to use a technical term, Alfa pretty much lost the plot after those cars. Yes.
Yeah, interesting. Well, we hope you've enjoyed reflecting on the beautifully balanced Alfetta Alfa Romeos, and we hope you can join us next time on Shannons Club TV. Bye for now.